says that Yemen's humanitarian crisis is aggravating due to the conflict. Yemen calls on the international community to designate the Houthis as a terrorist group. Hodeidah hosts a conference to raise awareness of landmines threat. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres praised diplomacy in bringing about positive change in Yemen's conflict. The UN chief said at the closing press conference for the year 2022, the UN diplomacy has succeeded in sponsoring the truce in Yemen. According to him, the truce brought real gains to the people. Major military operations have been reduced. Civilian fights have resumed from Sana'a, and vital supplies have finally arrived through Hodeidah port. Despite the United Nations efforts to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Yemen, recent reports continue to warn that the situation is to get aggravated. This report has more details.
After more than 8 years of conflict, millions of people in Yemen are suffering from the compounded effects of armed violence, ongoing economic crisis, and disrupted public services. An estimated 21.6 million people will need humanitarian assistance and protection services in 2023, a slight decrease from the 23.4 million people in the current year. Following intense fighting in the first months of 2022, the political and conflict environment shifted significantly in April upon the transition of power to the Presidential Leadership Council and the announcement of a United Nations brokered truce. The subsequent 6-month truce offered a glimpse of hope for many people. Civilian casualties and displacement decreased. A steady flow of fuel imports were received through Hodeidah port, and commercial flights resumed through Sana'a International Airport. Tensions have increased following the truce's expiry, although no major military escalation or offensive has taken place. Despite extensive efforts, an agreement to extend the truce had not been reached as of end of November. The continued fragility of the Yemeni economy exacerbated vulnerabilities among poor families. As a result of the depreciation of the Yemeni real, macroeconomic instability, and competing monetary policies. Being largely reliant on imported food and goods, Yemen is extremely vulnerable to fluctuations in global prices. As to public services and infrastructure, they have been severely impacted by the conflict and recurrent natural hazards. More than 80% of the country's population struggles to access food, safe drinking water, and adequate health services, while nearly 90% of the population has no access to publicly supplied electricity. Moreover, most public sector employees, including teachers and healthcare workers, have not received a regular salary in years.
The chairman of the PLC urged the international community to designate Houthis as a terrorist group. The statement came while a meeting between Rashad Al-Alimi and a delegation from the European Union. This report has more details.
Chairman of the Yemeni Presidential Leadership Council, Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi, reiterated his country's demand for the international community to designate the Iran-backed Houthi militias as terrorists. Al-Alimi received in Riyadh a delegation of the European Parliament, headed by the chair of the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, David McAllister. He urged the delegation to take actions by designating the Houthis as terrorists in view of its outrages, practices and violations of international law that have even surpassed the crimes committed by Al-Qaeda and ISIS terror groups and their allies in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. According to sources, McAllister said, "We call on the European Union to support the Leadership Council and the legitimate government in achieving reforms and alleviating the suffering of Yemeni citizens." Al-Alimi and the delegation discussed the latest developments in Yemen and European efforts required to establish peace and stability and fulfill the aspirations of the Yemeni people to restore state institutions and end the terrorist group Co. He expressed his gratitude to Europe's support of the legitimate government and humanitarian efforts in easing the suffering of the people. He stressed the importance of doubling international pressure on the terrorist Houthi militias and supporting the reforms led by the Presidential Leadership Council and the government as an ideal option to bring peace and reduce the catastrophic repercussions of the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. The European Union delegation underscored its support for all efforts aimed at establishing peace and stability and alleviating human suffering in Yemen. It highlighted the importance of intense international pressure to revive the political process in the country. Al-Alimi said that the legitimate government and the Leadership Council were dedicated to upholding the United Nations brokered ceasefire, which ended in October, and other peace initiatives to end the war, despite constant Houthi breaches that left hundreds of government military personnel dead or injured. And the Houthis continue to refuse to extend the ceasefire and open roads in Taiz. He stated that the Houthis are continuing their war in Yemen, proving to the Yemeni people first and then to the international community that they are not seeking peace, accusing the militias of collaborating with the terror groups, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Moreover, he revealed that the relationship between the Houthis and Iran dated back in 1983, not 2000, when the Iranian government gave its backing to an armed group commanded by Badruddin al-Houthi, the father of the Houthi movement leader, and the Iranian project in the Yemen coincided with the emergence of Hezbollah in Lebanon. He also accused the Houthis of freeing militants, including some of Al-Qaeda operatives jailed, of their involvement in the 2000 attack of the USS Cole destroyer, arming them and then sending them to liberated areas to launch attacks against government troops. He therefore praised the decision of the National Defense Council, which in October labeled the Houthis a terrorist group after they attacked oil terminals in the southern provinces of Hadramaut and Shabwa.
Foreign Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak discussed with U.S. ambassador latest developments in Yemen. Bin Mubarak stressed the need to take serious steps to deter Houthi militia's systematic attacks of civilian infrastructure. For his part, the U.S. ambassador affirmed his country's support for the efforts made by the UN envoy to achieve peace in Yemen. The Houthi rebels have issued death sentences against 16 residents of Saada Governorate. The government has described these sentences as mass coincidence of Houthi political opponents. This report has more details.
Yemen's government has condemned the Houthis for ordering the execution of 16 people in Saada Governorate. The Iran-backed group has also sentenced 13 others to life in prison. According to the government, the Houthis are acting in the same way that Iran does when dealing with dissidents. 16 Yemenis got death sentences from a Houthi-controlled court, claiming that they are collaborating with the opponents like the Yemeni government and the coalition. In addition, 13 residents in Saada were also charged to jail by Houthis. This isn't the first time Houthis commit such actions, as Yemenis witnessed the Houthis executing 9 civilians from Hodeidah in 2018. This execution was meant to spread fear among Yemenis. There was large screens set up to show the event to people who were standing far away. Senior Houthi leaders were given front row seats to watch the entire monstrous event. Since Houthis took control in 2014, they have issued death orders, confiscations of funds, and imprisoning thousands of Yemenis. A government official stated that the Houthis are implementing the same system as Iran and have demanded the prosecution of 16 individuals, all of whom are Saada natives. The international community, UN, and all humanitarian actors should intervene to help stop the violence Houthis are committing, including the killing and organized terrorism practices against civilians. International community should really intensify efforts to prosecute and hold Houthis accountable.
The Executive Unit for Displaced Camps in Ma'rib launched a distress call to save 81,000 displaced families. The unit added that 197 camps are in dire condition because of winter season.
Yemen, the worst famine the world has seen in 100 years. Right now, over 8 million people are facing starvation. Since the beginning of the war, 85,000 children have died due to the lack of food. We cannot allow this to continue. The Yemeni people can't wait.
A soldier was killed in Houthi shelling on the positions of the government forces in Lahj Governorate, southern Yemen. Over the past weeks, most of the fronts witnessed a state of cautious calm, except for cases of limited mutual shelling, without making any gains in terms of military control. The joint forces targeted Houthi militia's positions in Hodeidah after the rebels shelled populated villages. The military media reported that the units of the joint forces stationed in Hais Axis south of Hodeidah destroyed an artillery position and achieved direct hits on the sites of the Iranian-backed Houthi militia. In Hodeidah, 2 children were killed and a third one was injured in Houthi mine explosion. On the same day, local sources said that a civilian was injured by several shrapnel in separate areas of his body as a result of another Houthi mine explosion in the same area. In Al Hodeidah also, a conference was held in Hais district to raise awareness of mine risks. The conference discussed the most important issues related to community safety and mine dangers and other issues that threaten the safety of society. The participants stressed the need to support the mining teams, clear agricultural lands, intensify awareness, and educate citizens about the dangers of Houthi mines planted in different areas within the governorate.
Hodeidah Governorate is suffering from the problem of landmines that led to a huge number of disabled persons. There are 2,400 disabled civilians as a result of landmines. This is without counting the disabled among the military personnel.
The governorate has a large number of landmines in the villages and agricultural lands. There must be a plan to get rid of landmines that constitute a nightmare which spread in many areas. I hope we can come up with a solution. It is necessary to set a plan to solve the landmine problem.
Coming next. Amnesty International urged Houthis to stop crackdown on media.
أنا خارج ألعب جهة أصحابي وهو رموا علينا إن إحنا نرموا قعلي أصحابي صاروا يدعوا أصحاب المخيم بزين صاروا شايفين. صعب إنه معي شيء رق أقضيش ألعب مع أصحابي أبقى داخل ألعب الليل.
أصلاً الولد ما لعب ما بدهم أي حاجة ولما يشوف أصحابه يلعبوا وهما برجل واحدة يتعقد الولد الحركات والصوم. هذا أثر علينا كلنا الوالدة والوالد.
كنت قاعدة نروح المصيف كنت ألعب كورة وأجري برجلي وألعب مع أصحابي بعدين أبي صغير والآن ما أقضيش.
Welcome back. Amnesty International called on the Houthis to stop suppressing media freedom in the areas under its control. It called on the militia to end the trial of journalists and release all detainees and cancel unfair death sentences against journalists.
The Houthi militia are continuing to use repressive tactics to suppress the right to freedom of speech and media freedom and silence peaceful dissent in areas under their control. In this statement, Amnesty International has examined the cases of 3 imprisoned journalists subject to detention-related violations and unfair trials between 2015 and 2022. 4 other journalists continued to face the death penalty following a grossly unfair trial and the crackdown on 6 radio stations by the Houthis in January 2022. Between February and November 2022, the Specialized Criminal Court in Sana'a, which is under the authority of the Houthi militia, handed down harsh sentences of up to 8 years to 3 journalists on charges related to their work and on the basis of forced confessions obtained through torture and other ill treatment. 4 other journalists on death row are still facing due process violations with the Specialized Criminal Appeals Division, which has postponed their appeal hearing at least 8 times this year alone. Amnesty International called on the Houthi militia to immediately and unconditionally release all journalists, political activists, human rights defenders, and others unlawfully imprisoned for peacefully exercising their human rights. They also urged them to end their arbitrary restrictions on radio stations' freedom of expression, such as shutting them down and trying to control their narrative. Over the past 7 years, Amnesty International documented the cases of at least 75 journalists, human rights defenders, academics, and others perceived as opponents or critics who were subjected to arbitrary arrest and torture. All these victims were targeted because of their work as journalists or for peacefully exercising their human rights, including their rights to freedom of expression, association, and belief.
The United Nations appealed to donor partners to support efforts to develop a housing strategy in Yemen. The director of the Regional Office for Arab States in the United Nations said that Yemen needs 1.6 million new housing units to cover the shortage that occurred before the war, in addition to keeping pace with the natural population growth, infrastructure, and housing damaged as a result of the war. The capital Sana'a and other areas under healthy control of the witness to tough crisis in domestic gas. According to local sources, the value of the domestic gas cylinder on the black market amounted to about 11,000 riyals, while the distribution of cylinders to citizens has stopped. Economic sources accused the Houthi militia of halting work in the Yemeni company for refining salt in Hodeidah Governorate. The sources confirmed that the Houthi confiscated all the assets, fuel, furniture, and operating equipment from the company. The first exhibition for inventors was held in the interim capital, Aden. The exhibition presented remarkable contributions by the Yemeni youth. Ghazi is a young man whose invention impressed many who attended the event. This report has more details.
Ghazi, like many other young inventors, battled with the country's dire conditions in his quest for development. After facing significant hurdles, he was able to invent a device that can rival society's growing demands and serve the people.
This is a fuel injector diagnostic device for modern cars, and it should lower the rate of unemployment among young people. With enough training, youth can operate this machine in companies.
The invention, which Ghazi exhibited as a part of the event surrounding the Innovators and Inventors exhibition in Aden, provides significant advantages at lower prices than comparable products on domestic and international markets.
This product is sold internationally for upwards of $4,000. By manufacturing it locally, we are bringing down the price. It's easy to use, and it has repair parts and a detachable keyboard.
Ghazi had to overcome numerous obstacles before finalizing his project. The biggest of these struggles was a shortage of suitable equipment within the nation.
One of the obstacles I have run into while designing was the scarcity of equipment. I was missing a lot of the pieces I needed, but after acquiring them, I'm confident in my invention.
The exhibition, hosted by the local government in Aden in collaboration with the Center for Science and Technology at the University of Aden, as part of the National Youth Program, aimed to uncover talents and adopt and encourage ideas that benefit society.
As local authorities, it's our duty to help these young inventors develop the talents. The government must shed light upon these efforts and finance worthwhile projects.
The Creators and Inventors exhibition in the interim capital Aden revealed remarkable creations and innovations that contribute to serving the problems of society. The exhibit also affirmed the local authorities' adoption, support, and development of noteworthy inventions.
Some of the projects have already made their way into the market, and some still need financing to fully flourish. I'm really happy with the effort that has been poured into this exhibit.
Participants in the exhibition are eager for their creations to receive the proper care and attention to aid in the growth of the nation.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations says that Yemen's humanitarian crisis is aggravating due to the conflict. Yemen calls on the international community to designate Houthis as a terrorist group. Hodeidah hosts a conference to raise awareness of landmine threat. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fuad. See you soon.